This is for
Qualified.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Barely Qualified, a Formula One podcast. The sun is out, the birds are chirping. We're back in studio as we get to ring in the Chinese Grand Prix. We're heading back to, I've been waiting a year to say this, the land of the rising sun. The Shanghai Grand Prix. China on the horizon. How you feeling?
I think Land of the Rising Sun is actually Japan, right? Didn't we go through this last year?
We went through a whole thing last year, and I couldn't remember. I had more than enough time to look it up, and you got here earlier than I thought, and I meant to actually Google it and prepare an intro for it, but I ran out of time and just took a swing, and that's what I ended up with. Is it Japan?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Japan.
Okay. You know what I was thinking about? I was thinking about that movie, Shanghai Noon.
Mm-hmm. What about it?
Owen Wilson has a line in there where he says something like, the sun doesn't rise here, it sets here. And I was like, so it's got to be China. Because the movie's called Shanghai Noon. So I was like, it's got to be China, Land of the Rising Sun.
I like that's your reference. That's where that comes from. Okay, well, nonetheless, yes, we are here finally coming back to the Chinese Grand Prix. Today is Wednesday. Actually, 10 years ago today, did you know, was Max Verstappen's Formula 3 debut.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
And less than a year later, he was racing in Formula 1, wasn't it right? I think from his karting debut, or not his karting debut, his between karting and Formula 1, it was 1 year.
Yeah, because it was 2015 he came in, or 2016.
Yeah.
So
he spent just a short season in F3 and then made the jump all the way to F1. Only two drivers have done that, him and Lance Stroll, at least in recent years.
Lance did that all the way from, I thought he was had done F2, but wow, that's pretty.
I don't think he did. I think he went just on.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, a little bit of news before we get into all of the action in China. Speaking of Lance Stroll,
his teammate
Fernando Alonso, after a little bit of hemming and hawing, we saw, was he holding out for a possible Red Bull deal? Was he going to take Lewis's seat at Mercedes? Surely enough, announced this past week, Fernando Alonso will be doing a quote-unquote multi-year deal with Aston Martin. So no exact frame of time, but we will expect him to be in the car for at least a couple of years. We know Alonso's getting up there in age, so this could also be potentially some type of ambassador role for after he's done racing. I think this looks like a little cool deal for Alonso. I think for Aston Martin, this is exactly what they should have done.
It's definitely the right move for them.
So I think that's also kind of shaping up the rest of the driver market a little bit. So how do you feel about this?
I love it. I love the signing. I know that Aston Martin is doing big things, or at least trying to do big things to remain in the hunt there. 100% it's the right move for the team. I think it's the right move for Alonso given the circumstance. Mercedes seems to continue on the decline, so he wouldn't want to go there. The Red Bull seat. Maybe this is a sign that, they're not looking elsewhere, at least for now. There's that Checo is doing the job that they've expected, and he's going to stay in that seat. It makes the driver market a lot more interesting. I don't think it's going to be an ambassador role. I don't see Fernando Alonso sticking around and hanging out in the world of Formula One too long after he retires. Not enough to take a job with a team. I imagine that he's going to be out on the beaches, in the mountains, with the women, at the nightclubs.
Well, here's the thing to think about too: is Aston Martin has the Valkyrie, and their supercar, and then they also have the World Endurance Championship, which
that's true. And he does want. I think he had mentioned he wants a little bit something after.
So I
after
think
Formula One. I know he's going for the Indy title because he's won a Le Mans, right?
Yeah, 2-time winner of Le Mans. So he's been historically very into going out. He did went after the whole Triple Crown thing, and so
he did Dakar.
So I think for continuing that relationship with Aston Martin,
I guess
after his Formula One career, I think it would be a really great partnership.
I was thinking of it in more of just a paddock role or a team representative role, but I guess if it's in some sort of a driver capacity, just in a different series, that would make more sense. I do like that. Yeah, that's cool. That's a good idea. But yeah, like you said, it leaves one seat open, really. So Carlos Sainz, it looks like you're heading to Mercedes.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. If it still leaves that as an option. I'm not quite sold on it yet. But
it's the most glaring option for now. But
yeah.
I mean, if anything that we've learned in F1 recently, it's that a bomb can get dropped on us at any moment. So
totally. So other little bit of news. Apparently Andretti, even though they got formally shut down by Formula One management after previously getting approval from FIA to join the grid, potentially in 2026 and beyond, Andretti has gone ahead and opened their own facility in Endstone. In a big move to show that they're actually serious about this bid, that they're going to continue to build the team and to develop their potential car and motor package. So, I think this is just another showing to us that this isn't over yet, and that we're going to be hearing about this for quite a while until, I think we'll actually. I think it could end up being, very fruitful for them, but
but if it goes the opposite way, they're going to be out a whole fuck ton of money. I fingers crossed that it doesn't, obviously, but
yeah.
I mean, fake it till you make it. Like, keep showing up and proving that you want to get it. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, if and when a spot opens, a proverbial seat, I guess, opens up, I think Andretti obviously is the first choice. Because they'll be the first ones ready to go. I mean, I don't know what else to say besides I like it. Yeah.
I think Formula One management truly just wants them to buy another team. So you got to imagine Alpine teams probably in there, potentially Haas or maybe even Williams too at a certain point. But the likelihood of that happening just seems like very slim at this point in time. So this route of them just charging ahead and just building their own team with the idea of just being an addition to the grid, I think is probably the best way to go about it. But I don't know. Like you said, it's it's a lot of money to put in for it to all go to nothing.
They have to have a pretty good idea that they might know more than we know. There's rumblings of what's going to happen, and maybe they are finally going to just fold, and instead of starting from scratch, end up buying or taking over a team, which is, like you said, F1's pushing them to do that. They made it pretty clear that they didn't want to go that route and that they want to start from scratch. But if they have to just say, let's say, take over everything from Alpine, they clearly have the funds to, they prove that they have the funds to run an F1 team. They have this new facility in Endstone. So they could essentially just wipe the floor with everything that is Alpine and then start from scratch with the new, with the rights to a team, basically. Yeah. It would suck for everybody that works there. I'm sure X amount of people would stay on, X amount of parts and design would stick around, but once you have the rights to it, you can do with it what you want, is just so long as you have the funds.
Yeah. We'll see what ends up happening. I think, like I said, this is far from over. So we're going to keep seeing little bits of this pop up until, probably around the time the new Concord agreement gets figured out, we'll hear more about whether or not Formula One's going to consider bringing another team in or not. So hopefully we'll get some stuff figured out.
I like that they're fighting so hard to prove that they belong, because they do. Yeah. Andretti is synonymous with motorsport, and motorsport is synonymous with Andretti. It's a shame that they cannot, for the life of them, seem to find a clear path right now. So fingers crossed, God willing.
So
here's a question, though. Yeah. What do they do? Let's say they get in. What do they do with this facility in Endstone? Because they promised that they would be a U.S.-based team. So would that just be a second, smaller sister facility for, away gigs?
No, I mean, you'd probably just see certain types of things getting worked on there. It's probably some sort of development testing center, maybe something like that. But the team could still be, based out of, But
Wonder, I guess I would assume it would be like a testing and design facility, whereas like the manufacturing, which I think is what they want done in the United States, would be done here.
Yeah, I mean,
Who knows?
Not
sure
I. Exactly, but cool. So, like we said, Chinese Grand Prix coming up, first time in 5 years.
Oh, I was gonna say 4.
Yeah, it was 2019 was the last time we were there.
So 2020, 21, 22, 23. So we've missed 4 years.
Yeah.
First time in 5 years, yeah.
Yeah. So, going to be a sprint weekend this weekend.
We've got a lot of action.
First sprint race this year, so it's going to be a little tricky. Teams coming in without having been here. They have no data from the past 4 years. The track will have been newly repaved and resurfaced.
Yeah, we have a whole new concept of F1 cars.
Yeah,
that's never touched this track before.
So there's going to be a lot up in the air coming into the beginning of the weekend. But new sprint format this year changes things up a little bit. Teams won't be quite as locked in with the same kind of issues they had last year. So the sprint race is moving to Saturday, with qualifying being right after the sprint race.
Yeah.
So last year it was qualifying on the Friday. So teams, the cars got locked into Parc Ferme on Friday. So teams can make any changes throughout the weekend. Now that it's after the sprint race,
they have a little bit more data.
They have more data. The cars are running on a different fuel load, all that kind of stuff. So they'll be able to make adjustments for the Sunday race.
So do you think that this is beneficial to the teams behind Red Bull or more beneficial to Red Bull themselves?
Well, that's kind of a tough question because I would off top, I would say it's probably more beneficial to the other teams just because Red Bull usually comes in very, kind of
come in a little bit of sandbagged.
Yeah, I mean, usually
not sandbag, but like they don't look as good as they're going to on Sunday. Like Friday through Saturday, I feel like you go, oh man, they don't look that great. There's a glimmer of hope, and then come Sunday, they're locked in and everything is top notch. So I guess I'm saying I agree with you in that having the other teams get a little bit more time to dial things in is more beneficial for the best of the rest and middle of the pack guys. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, but I also saw it. I was going to say that I feel like Red Bull probably is a little more on top of their setup going into the weekend than some other teams, but we did see them get caught out last year. I'm trying to remember exactly where it was. It wasn't Singapore because Singapore wasn't a sprint race, but
well, Max finished 4th in Singapore, so that could have been what you're thinking of.
Yeah, but it was something along those lines of where they just coming into the weekend, they didn't get it right, and then they kind of got caught up in having their not being able to make any changes. So I think let me see.
Oh, because of the Parc Ferme rules, you're saying?
Yeah. So last year's sprint races were. We saw Azerbaijan, Austria, Belgium, Qatar, Austin, and Brazil. Maybe I was thinking of Brazil.
That was where Oscar Piastri beat Max in the sprint.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what I was thinking. They ended up at the end of the weekend. They ended up,
So you're saying that Red Bull could potentially benefit by not being locked into Parc Ferme regulations?
With where we're at in the season, I think it's open book. I think anyone's subject to the same mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I think now that they have the ability to change going into the Sunday, I think we'll see less of that. We'll see less teams struggling with the same with those types of issues. I think we'll end up seeing a lot more competitive race come Sunday now with this new sprint format.
That'd be nice, obviously. Do you think that Max Verstappen has a chance to hit the Grand Slam?
What would the Grand Slam be?
Fastest in practice, all 3 rounds. Win the sprint, pole in qualifying, win the Grand Prix.
Do I think he has the ability to?
I mean,
absolutely.
I
yeah.
guess. Do you think that using the word possibility or the ability to, obviously,
Yeah.
yes, it's possible. Do you think he's going to, or do you think that somebody somewhere along the lines, I'm particularly in either the sprint or the quali, I could give a shit who goes fastest in practice, but do you think that somebody is going to best Max Verstappen in one of the more important sessions? I do think he's got the Grand Prix locked up. Like, I think he's going to win the race. Either him. Nah, he's going to win it. He's going to win it for sure. I wanted to do something more romantic and say, like, a one-off Lewis Hamilton win, but there's no fucking way. Yeah. Or a Fernando Alonso, because Fernando, Lewis, and Bottas would probably be the three guys with the most experience coming into Shanghai, like who've driven this track, even though it's been 5 years, so who knows how much they really still like have the track locked in. But I'm just talking about like in track experience. But like I said, that's a romanticized idea of racing in general.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. I think, like I said just a minute ago, I think all teams have equal opportunity to take advantage of the sprint weekend. The track itself has characteristics very similar to that of Bahrain. So I think we're going to see a situation, probably somewhat similar. We're going to see the Ferraris, probably not up to speed with the Red Bulls, but it will probably be the second fastest car. And then behind that, we saw in Bahrain, we saw the Mercedes actually having a little bit of an edge on McLaren. So I think that could be also at play here. Just with the high-speed corners and whatnot. But other than that, I think everything's up to the teams to get it right. So
how do you think the McLarens are going to fare coming out of? They had a good showing up until the race. It seemed like, and it wasn't like Lando Norris had a bad showing. It was just that he got bested by Leclerc. Is kind of it. But he started what, P3?
Yeah,
bested by Leclerc and Sainz actually.
And the team, the team said that. They felt like Lando kind of, outqualified where the car was actually at. So not surprised that he did move back a little bit. But altogether, I think, I can't see many improvements being made between Australia or Japan and China.
Yeah.
So.
Unless
they have like some upgrades come in that I'm not aware of, but as far as I know, there's nothing big. So
yeah, it's been another slow news cycle. It feels like in the beginning of the season and in the off season, all the F1 news and drama really just blew its load, and now it's just like, all right, we have literally just 2 weeks off. I don't think about F1 until we have to do a pod, at least in these past few races.
Yeah, well, I mean, spring break.
I'm not complaining.
The teams just had a big charge, so there was a lot happening. I think.
Yeah, we're all still catching our breath.
Yeah, once we get through Miami, I think there'll be a little bit more of a let's see. Let's look at the schedule here. We got.
We have Miami after this week. 2 weeks after this week.
Let's see.
That's gonna be nice, dude. Because especially coming off of just 2 late races, like this is gonna be a race at midnight or 1 a.m. for us.
Yeah. So like after Miami, there's like 1 week off, and then you got 2 races in a row, then 1 week off, and then you got a race, and a weekend off, and then it's like you get only maybe 3 weeks off in with about 6 or 7 races. So not much going on right now. But
so who do you like? Pick your podium is what I'm gonna ask you.
Okay. I'm going to say Max, Checo, Carlos.
In that order?
Yeah.
God, I wish I could go for something else.
Okay, so
I will go Max, Carlos, Fernando. How about that? Just to make it a little sexier.
I'm with it. So this is going to be a big hometown race for our boy, Zhou Guanyu.
He's going to DNF.
This is his third year in Formula One. There's a lot at stake for him this year.
Was that a pun? A lot at stake?
It wasn't intentional, but I do like it. So,
right.
What can we expect from him here in China? Do we, he's going to have a lot of attention on him. I want to see, what the fans are going to bring. What is he going to be able to make it out of 2024? That's what I want to know. Kind of this weekend, I want to see what his star power really is. I want to see him under a little bit of pressure, have a good result. I know he's, he's kind of handcuffed by that car and the mistakes of the team. So,
and he's had just about like an average start to this season.
Sure.
Maybe slightly below, and had just about like an average season last year. I think having a really, really strong result at this race in particular might be the only way he gets out of 2024. If they can go, all right, like you can rise to the occasion, because obviously a hometown race is a big deal. A lot of pressure and a lot of desire for him, team, and fans for him to do well here. So if he can perform and the team can go, you know what? Not only did you have a good race, but you did it under an immense pressure. You rose to the occasion. We'll give you one more year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say no. Like the odds of him coming back next year are very, very slim. But this might be his best shot as like a top 7 finish here.
Yeah. It's tough, man, because that team is just not in a great position.
There's just nothing to him.
And for him to be able to like do anything flashy, right? Like if he gets points, like that would be huge.
Mm-hmm.
But when their best pit stop is like a 4-second stop, they're just already on the back foot. This is going to be a 2-stop race, so.
Yeah, and I think with like what the other teams are going to be able to do at this track, just because like you said, it's a track similar to Bahrain. Like I think the Red Bulls, the McLarens, the Ferraris, the McLarens, the Astons, those 4 teams are just going to chew them up. There's going to be no space for anybody else to show up at all.
Yeah, I mean,
there's not going to be no miracle.
Yeah, so at Bahrain he was in 11th, right outside the points.
Mm-hmm.
So if if he can be right around that, if he's like on the brink of points, I think it'll be like a victory for him.
It's not going to be career saving.
It won't be career saving, but I think he's going to need. It's going to take more than one race. More than one good performance at his home race to get him.
Yeah.
Out of a situation. But
and they have one more year before they become Audi, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll keep him around. Maybe they'll keep both those guys around and just go, hey, fuck it. Like, this is literally just a bridge.
Yeah, well, earlier we were talking about Carlos, and he's going to need a place to go, until if he's doing a deal with Audi, are they going to put him in that seat? Or is he going to be sitting out for a year before he comes back? I don't think so. So
yeah, just to get him acclimated to the team,
yeah.
Bring him in early. I don't know.
But
if one of those guys goes just to bring Carlos in, so let's say Kimi Antonelli goes to Mercedes and Carlos ends up going to Sauber, who gets booted? Bottas or Zhou? And who does the team kick and who would you kick? Pun intended. It wasn't.
I think Joe's probably cheaper. So
you keep Zhou?
Yeah, get rid of Valtteri. Valtteri's got a lot of, he's a very popular driver. He's got a lot of commercial appeal. Joe, I think, to a certain degree, has some commercial appeal and like probably has a lot of fans in China and in
that
this
dude's
market.
A wet noodle, bro. he's got the Chinese factor, but he's so personalityless.
I mean, he's compared to some other people on the grid, he's not the most like he's not the biggest star, but I think he's a very,
him and Esteban Ocon might have the least amount of star power to them.
I would say I would give Joe a little bit of a credit over Esteban. Joe at least is like, he's like artistic. He's like very fashionable. He designs all his own helmets.
I was going to say his helmets are maybe the only redeeming quality that he's got. And like, the fact that he loves Kobe, but then you interview him about it and it's like you're interviewing a 2-year-old. He just like, you would want like a cool interview and he just like kind of shells up and gets nervous.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just, he's just kind of like a nice guy, kind of like very, maybe feels a little bit out of his element, at least has, in the first couple of years, of his career. I think this year maybe he's coming into a little bit of his own.
Maybe one more year in the spotlight would do him well as a,
we'll
turn
see.
him into a little bit more of a media darling.
But yeah, he's definitely no, I don't know.
No Daniel
He's
Ricciardo.
no Daniel Ricciardo, that's for sure. So
good, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, other than that, I want to see some more consistency from Checo. I want to see if Charles can bounce back and actually get a decent qualifying here and, maybe even best his teammate.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. But,
yeah. Bold prediction?
Bold. I don't know. You got something?
I'm going to cook. I'm going to say Oscar Piastri beats Lando Norris in the race on Sunday.
Okay.
That's my boy. That's my sweet baby boy. Maybe me going against the grain will actually help Lando. So maybe I'm just using a little bit of reverse psychology on it. But I feel like Oscar needs a race to step up, and a sprint weekend feels like the right time for him to do it. He's done well on sprints. Like a little bit more time in the car over a weekend seems to help him. So,
all right, my bold prediction: we will see a different winner in the sprint race than in the Grand Prix.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
So you're saying no Grand Slam for Max?
No Grand Slam for Max. I think it's definitely in the cards for him.
What do you think it's going to be?
But I think either we're going to see like a setup problem or we'll see something substantial, say like a crash or something.
A variable, a tear off in an air duct.
I mean,
that got Carlos a win last year.
Yeah.
All righty. Does that do it?
I think so.
Killer. This has been Barely Qualified, a Formula One podcast, the pre-Chinese Grand Prix edition. We'll be back next week following the race. Peace.
Qualified.